Cyril Paul is a part of BKC Fireflies Toastmasters Club. He's a chartered accountant by profession and works for one of the private equity funds in Mumbai. In his spare time, Cyril enjoys reading, doodling. I don't want to read his full description. What I know about him is he is aspiring and he is already, I believe, according to me, he's an accomplished voice artist. And you will see the quality of his voice when he starts speaking, right? Amin Sayani, Amitabh Bachchan, and then we'll have Cyril Paul. So let's give it away for the champion, the Toastmaster who will take us through the nuances of humorous speech. Over to you, Toastmaster Cyril Paul, enlighten us.
I would like to thank Avinash Singh for those kind words. I am very, very honored. Thank you. Right? Yeah. I want to say that it is the first ever time in my life that I won anything. This was a pleasant surprise for me. So without much ado, let me just open my, I need to share the screen. Can I have, just 1 second, guys.
You are the co-host, you can share the screen.
Just give me 1 second while I get this figured out. There you go.
1 second is done. Yes, okay.
You guys can see the screen, right? Splendid. All right. So the purpose of this session is not to teach you about humor. I know that we're on the clock. Teaching you about humor would probably take about 3 hours. This is just a ramrod focused session on how to win the Toastmasters humorous speech, or rather how to prepare a good speech and set you on a winning path. All right. Now, also I need to say that I've never won anything in my life except for the Toastmasters Eloquence 2021. And I was privileged to have an awesome mentor in Avinash Singh, who coached me day to day, who literally tortured me into coaching, into practicing my speech on a weekly, monthly basis, all the way into the finals. So whatever you're going to hear from me is what I learned from him for the last 6 months. So long as Avinash is sitting in the audience, you got Team B talking here. Team A is already sitting there, and you can learn from it. So without much ado, let me just start with the sessions for today. Now, I'd like all of you to keep your screens, your microphones unmuted. Let's make it as interactive as possible so as to make this next half an hour as meaningful. So let me just jump onto this. Guys. Yep. Things to consider before you start writing a speech. All right. Let me just put this image in front of you. Anyone knows the movie? I'm a huge movie buff, by the way. Anyone knows this movie? Can anyone guess and tell me what the scene is all about? Go ahead. Yep. Abhinav, Toastmaster Abhinav.
Matrix.
Matrix.
Can you describe the scene to me if you remember?
Yes. So Neo somehow gets fascinated with what he's seeing, and is that reality or not? And in his mind, he's able to see the spoon is turning just like a snake.
Right. Well covered. This is Neo sitting outside the Oracle's kitchen, and he sees a boy who's bending the spoon. He tries to bend the spoon. That's him trying to bend the spoon. And there's a bald-headed boy. He says that there is no spoon. Think that there is no spoon and you can bend the spoon. Right? Let me throw another image at you. There you go. Another famous movie called Fight Club. The first rule of Fight Club is
not to talk about Fight Club.
Yes, you can't talk about Fight Club. Therefore, the first rule about writing a humorous speech is that you just don't go around, start out by writing a humorous speech. You write a very regular, normal speech, and then you elevate it, you embellish it with humor. If you start about by writing a humorous speech, number one, the pressure is going to be immense. Your first line, your first para should be funny, blah, blah, blah. Don't go for it. Just start about by writing a very regular speech. And then you do step number 2, embellishing it with humor. So one more thing that I'd like to add. It's a humorous speech contest. Yeah, it's a humorous speech contest, which means that whatever the other regular rules of the universe, the regular rules of physics that apply to regular Toastmasters speech, they continue to apply to a humorous speech as well. So whatever you can do to make your speech go that extra mile, whether it's elegant vocabulary, whether it's good use of figures of speech, maybe it's a clever metaphor or using alliteration, or maybe it's whatever that you can typically use, evocative language, whatever that would add or embellish your regular speeches will equally continue to apply to humorous speech. And one place that this is all the more evident is when you look at the judges' ballot, right? Now, there you have the judges' ballot criteria. The judges' ballot for a humorous speech is almost identical to a judge's ballot for an international speech contest. I think the only difference is the speech content over here has got 55 points, and in the ISC it is 50 points. When I saw this, I literally fell out of my chair. Let's go through this individually. So number one, you'll be evaluated on your speech development. Do you have a good structure? Worst comes to worst, is there a discernible opening, a middle, and a closing to your speech? It's important to have that. Speech effectiveness, 10 points. Are you really achieving what you set out to do? Your speech was titled 3 Mistakes of My Life. Did you really cover 3 mistakes, or did you just stop at one and then you just kind of ambled elsewhere? Speech value. It really helps if you can bring some new idea, some original thought in your speech. Your audience response. Is the audience attentive to you? Are they laughing away, or are they just kind of disinterested and looking elsewhere? Right? Coming to speech delivery. Your physical appearance. Are you confident? Is there good body language? Your vocal variety. Are you adjusting your volume, or are you just talking in a single monotone? Manner. Are you assured? Are you confident? Are you direct to the audience? Are you enthusiastic? And language. Is your language appropriate? Did you use language correctly, grammatically? Are you crafting your speech with enough of language elegance? Now, I said that I fell out of my chair when I saw this, because nowhere in this judge's ballot I found any special marks for humor. The only place I found some reference to humor is audience response, 15 points. Out of 100, 15 points. Where was the audience laughing? And in a Zoom environment, you just don't know if the audience is laughing or not. So there's added pressure on you. Therefore, focus on your speech, focus on your speech content, insert enough one-liners there, insert enough humor there in order to get those audience response of 15 points. Right? Now, how do you go about doing that? Some tips to elevate the humor content in your speech. Number one, humanity's inherent and perverse proclivity for miserable stories. I just said a slide ago that if you use good, elegant vocabulary that would make Sashi Tharoor proud of you, you would get some kind of a mark from your judges. And there you have it. Perverse proclivity. Right? Now, I'm not sure. This is a Readers and Debaters Club. Have you guys heard about this Israeli author called Edgar Keret? E.T., go ahead. I got 2 screens that I can see people over here. Has anyone heard of Edgar Keret? No? He's an Israeli author. Israel's got a population of 8 million, and Edgar Keret's book, they sell about 1 to 1.5 million. He's insanely popular there. Now, he's a short story writer. He's a humorous short story writer, and he takes the short story aspect to the next level. The longest story that he would write would be probably 2 pages long, and the shortest story that he would write is maybe 1 para, 2 paragraphs long. Now, he made this interesting observation. He said that we as human beings, we find it so much more easy to believe a lie when there is something negative attached to that lie, right? So it's like, why are you late for office? Because there was this huge accident on the road, sir. There was so much of blood everywhere. The traffic jam, I got late, right? You never say that, you know what, I was just coming out of my home and I got this call from an unknown number. I picked up, it was Mukesh Ambani. And he told me 15 different ways how we should rethink the strategy for our startup, right? You don't dare say that to your boss, because even if that story is right, your boss will probably tell you to take a hike or, do something much worse. We as human beings, we tend to like misery. We have a very visceral connect with misery. We actually smile when something miserable happens, right? We smile when something miserable happens to people that we don't like. You're like, serves you right, isn't it? Now, we smile when miserable things happen to people that we don't know, strangers. You're walking down the road and there's someone walking against you, and a crow does the job on that person. You smile. Why? Because hum to bach gaye, uske upar gira. Isn't it? Now, we also smile when miserable things happen to people that we love. We smile at it and we say, you know what, it'll be okay. We're in this together. We'll get through. we have a very inherent connect with misery. We love misery. Therefore, when you're confused about what topic to choose, think about the 5 miserable situations in your life. Think about the 5 most embarrassing situations in your life that you've had, and there you have your material to start on. Otherwise, you'll be like going all around searching for that one topic. This is your fertile hunting ground. Go for the big opening and catch those laughters early on. Now, ensure that your speech is peppered with enough humor. George Washington said, if you're arrested for kindness, is there enough evidence to prosecute you? And I twisted. If you're arrested for giving a humorous speech, is there enough evidence to prosecute you? Pepper your speech with as much humor as possible and ensure that you have one good punchline coming in within the first 20 seconds. Let the audience know that you're here for a humorous speech and slam it in front. All right? That's how you would be getting their attention in the first minute or so. Ensure that you have 2 good punchlines coming in towards the end as well. Ensure that you have one punchline every 30 to 45 seconds. So that's 7 minutes. You should have at least 7 punchlines coming in there. I would say don't waste your time doing the usual beer contest, share, respected Toastmasters, blah, 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 guests and all of that. Now, there is one gentleman, Ankit Sathalikar. He is someone who captures that 7 minutes entirely. So in the eloquence speech, his speech was titled, You Will Die Alone. So the contest chair introduces him. Now we have the next speaker, Ankit Sathalikar. You will die alone. Toastmaster Ankit Sathalikar. Toastmaster Ankit Sathalikar, you will die alone. And he jumps in, no, not you two contest chair, no. Right? No waste of time jumping in with that big opening and just going on with it. Intersperse your narrative with twists wherever possible. Right? Anyone has seen this movie called The Prestige by Christopher Nolan? Go ahead, show of hands. Anyone knows why that movie is called The Prestige?
Yes.
Yes. Go ahead.
Yes, it's actually the third part of any magical act that where the narrative explains that the magician does not only have to disappear the subject. That's not enough. You also have to make it reappear, and that phenomenon of reappearance is called the prestige, unless the act is incomplete.
Absolutely. So there are 3 parts to every magic trick. Part 1, it's called the pledge. That's when the magician says that he's going to do something. I'm going to make this beautiful lady disappear. Part 2 is called the turn. That's when the magician turns stuff. He makes a beautiful lady disappear. Part 3 is a prestige, when the magician just basks in the glory of having dumbfounded the audience. So the pledge, the turn, and the prestige. Similarly, there are 3 parts to any humorous situation. There is a premise, where you build your humorous story. There is a pause, where you build the story to such an extent you stop it at the precipice. And then there is the punchline, where you either you deliver the story, or you deliver the punchline, or you twist the story in such a way that the audience never expects. You misdirect the audience everywhere. So a clever example of this would be, Mary had a little lamb, little lamb, little lamb. Mary had a little lamb, and her gynecologist had a heart attack. Think about it, it'll make sense, right? You just twisted the audience into believing something, and then you just pull the rug underneath them. Ensure that you have as many twists as possible. Be liberal with this. It's difficult to put in more than maybe 3 or 4, but this works brilliantly. Some tips and tricks to make a good speech better. Now, how can we do that? Insert quotable quotes. Now, the internet is a happy hunting ground for quotable quotes. Ensure that your quotes are funny, and you can think of anyone. Think about the Hollywood greats like a Groucho Marx or a Jerry Lewis, or just type funny quotes and you'll find it. Whatever your topic is, if your topic is about marriages, you'll find enough and more quotable quotes on marriages. Funerals, you'll find enough and more quotable quotes on funerals. Whichever way, internet is your happy hunting ground. You'll find enough and more. Use this, if possible, in the first 1 minute. It adds a certain gravitas to your speech, and also kind of captures the audience at the right place. Insert a movie dialogue if possible. Now, if your speech is about the Bombay locals, right? You can actually say that Mumbai locals ko pakadna mushkil hi nahi, namumkin hai. Isn't it? And your speech has just resonated with your audience in a way that you just can't do it with regular television, right? Use movie dialogues wherever possible, twist it, and ensure that, and believe me, you will get enough and more laughter for this. Once upon a time. Now, they say that the level of expertise that you have in any language is the comfort with which you can solve a crossword puzzle in that language. And I say that the level of love that you have for a language is the number of puns that you know in that particular language. So let's just think about it. The puns they have a peculiar way to make you laugh here and here. And that's what you should go for. That's what your judges will not be expecting. And that's where you have your misdirection coming up again. Let's think of some regular puns, the usual staid ones, right? A Roman general walks into a bar, puts up two fingers, and he says, 5 beers, please, because 5, right? Or a man walks into a bar and he says, ow, someone take that bar off. I didn't see that, because a bar means something that's hanging. Or a perfectionist can never walk into a bar because the bar is very high in his mind. Isn't it? Use clever puns wherever possible, intersperse it. These are very good ways to pepper up your speech, especially the body. If you can do that, that's a great thing. Again, internet is your friend. Go for it. Accents and impersonations. Now, India is a treasure trove of accents. Wherever you go, you'll find an interesting accent to play on. So, like I said, I can tell you the speech exactly the way I learned it when I was in 3rd standard, how my teacher used to speak. Or I can tell you the speech exactly how Shashi Tharoor would probably pronounce it. Right? You can enunciate any which way to ensure that there is a difference. Now, be mindful about this. Ensure that you get your accent right. You just don't imitate a South Indian by just saying yum, yen, OEP. Things have moved from there. That's the 1970s South Indians. Now people speak differently, right? Use as many puns as possible. They say that typically the North Indian, my accent is very good, no. Or the South Indian, when you really go and you roll your R's as far as possible, it's a good way to kind of capture them. But ensure that you do a good job, because it can be a little bit of a divisive play if you don't get it right. Right? You can impersonate people. Like I keep saying, you can actually one simple Bollywood style is to just drop your shoulder, that left hand swagger, and say, on better. Right? And you know who I'm talking about over there. Now, if you're giving an example as you're coming back home late from a party, and your father or your mother or your elder brother is questioning you why you're late, and here's the situation: hold a pencil in your hand and say, "Come on, tell me why are you late? India wants to know. Come on, tell me, guys." So you know whom you're talking about over here. Impersonate the person without really giving that answer. Or if you have a boss whose name is Dipankar, Dipankar, Khushua, right? As many, you can impersonate people, ensure that there are dialogues so that you can actually use this accents and impersonations wherever possible. This is a very underused tool in humorous speeches as far as I've seen. Therefore, go ahead and try this and you will be noted for that. Use your screen very wisely. Now, unfortunately, we are in the Zoom environment. We just get this little 4 inches of screen presence, and you need to use it very, very wisely. Move around your screen as much as possible. Don't stay rooted to a spot, right? If there is dialogue or conversation, ensure that you're moving around. Like, hey, is this what you said? Yes, this is what I said. Hey, is this what you said? How dare you say that? Oh, sorry, I won't do that again, please. Right? Use your screen as far as possible. Lean forward to say something like a secret, and lean backward to show the entire canvas of what you've done. Use your screen very, very wisely. Move. Please don't stay rooted to a spot. Be animated. Be active. How to make a good speech better? Now, what to completely avoid? 2 things. Completely avoid toilet humor. If your speech has got a story of how your mobile phone fell into the commode and you have to reach down into the commode, pick it up, and there are stuff sticking to your phone. Don't even go there. You're going to gross out a lot many people. Whatever happens in the toilet stays in the toilet. Don't bring it away. Avoid sexist jokes. Avoid jokes that would divide people. Avoid North Indian versus South Indian jokes, right? There's just, you can actually find this on Google. One of the Toastmasters preparatory sessions, he said that crack only such jokes that you would crack in your common group. You don't crack husband jokes in a wives group. You don't crack wives jokes in a husband group. You don't crack young people jokes in a old people group. Ensure that you have a democratic and diverse audience and respect that audience. Don't do anything that would annoy your audience or divide your audience. Avoid COVID humor. One of the cleverest lines about COVID is that I could crack a COVID joke here, but that would be absolutely tasteless. Why? Because you lose your sense of smell and sense of taste in COVID, isn't it? But be careful. COVID is a very sensitive topic. Everyone that we know in our probably first circle or our friends' first circle has lost people. COVID is a little dicey topic to use. It's like saying something about the situation in Afghanistan. Why can't you count the number of people leaving Afghanistan? Because there is a tally ban. You can't tally it, right? You can't crack this joke in an ISC. It would be seen as extremely offensive. Therefore, be mindful of these sensitive things. Therefore, what can you do more of? Whatever I said so far, avoid, except for the toilet humor part. You can go ahead and do this so long as you're the victim, you're the bakra. All the bad things that you said are happening to you. Be self-deprecatory as far as possible. The audience will love you for that. The audience, like I said, we as human beings, we have a very visceral connection to misery. We love it when miserable things happen to people that we know. Think of the last time you cracked an embarrassing story about yourself to a friend, and think of the friend's reaction. Probably would have laughed. Self-deprecatory humor wins big time. Beware the plagiarism rule. Now, this is something which I was very, very confused of. If you look at the Toastmasters rules, then, sorry, I see Shripa that raised a hand. Did I miss it? Did you have a question, Shripa? So sorry, I just saw that your hand was, okay, cool. Before the plagiarism rule, as per the Toastmasters rules, 25% of your speech can be attributed to somebody else. You can quote another, it need not be original. Now, I was always confused. 25% means what? Your speech is, let's say, 1,000 words, then 250 words can be taken to can be attributed to someone else and may not be original? Or is it in terms of time? If your speech is 4 minutes long, 1 minute can be attributed to somebody else? I was very, very confused. Easy way to think of it is that whenever you're quoting somebody else, it may be a funny quote, as I mentioned, ensure that you give the reference to that other person, just to ensure that you're in the clear. You're not caught by the plagiarism rule. I'm told that this was a highly contested, or rather a controversial thing when in times of physical speeches. It's not so in a Zoom environment, but ensure that you give credit to where you are met. This is a rather tricky thing to be, a tricky gun to have on your head. Some essentials that you should be doing: get a mentor. Like I said, I was privileged to have Avinash as my mentor. And what a mentor does is he gives you that unfiltered third-party opinion on your content. Is it good? Is it good for a club level? Is it good for a division level? Will this actually take you forward? He'll give you an unfiltered opinion on the quality of your material. Your mentor, you'll be practicing a lot with your mentor. I mean, between Avinash and I, we've had calls that began at 6:30 in the morning a couple of times when I was narrating on the day of the contest, actually. A mentor, I really cannot overemphasize this. Get a mentor as early on at your club contest level, and then ensure that you have as many training sessions as possible. Get a bakra, get a victim, get someone that you can practice your speech on. In my case, my most frequent bakra was my wife. And the number of times that I've practiced my speech on my wife, I say that it actually qualifies as domestic domestic abuse. I have violated at least 7 tenets of the Geneva Convention. I had as many as 17 bakras. I had my colleagues, I had my best friends, I had my relatives, I had my neighbor, I had friends that I hadn't spoken to, I had people who were not in India. I had people who were the oldest of my bakras were 60 plus, the youngest was 12 years old. Try your speech on as many people as possible to ensure that you're not really violating anything, you're not really offending anyone. And another thing about humorous speeches is that by the time you're in your area or division contest, your speech will stop being funny for you. Why? Because you've repeated it so many times that, you know, a joke when you repeat it, it just doesn't strike you as funny as the first time. So you will stop believing in your humor. Therefore, you need your bakras to tell you that it's really funny. And a new bakra, he's hearing it for the first time, he or she or is hearing it for the first time, and they will laugh out loud, and that gives you a lot more confidence, right? And sometimes your victims, they can actually, they'll be bored of your speech, and they will actually give you some tricks or some ways that you can actually elevate your speech. They will probably say that joke, you know, if you say it this way, it may be better. Why don't you use this mannerism? That may be better. Your bakras are fertile hunting grounds for you to improve your speech. Go ahead and get as many bakras as possible. Practice. More number of times than written on this screen right now. Right? Practice wherever you can, practice wherever you can, practice with whoever you can, practice however you can, practice on your commute, practice on your commode, wherever you go, practice. Because on this Zoom environment, there is a problem. It's an actual problem that we face, is that the network could just switch off and you have no idea where you left it. Ensure that you know your speech like the back of your hand, right? You know that at the end of every minute, where exactly are you in your speech? At the end of the first minute, you're somewhere here. Second minute, you're here. So that if the network cuts out, you can immediately pick up and you can start from there. Toastmaster Shiva, who was a finalist, had this problem. The network cut out when he was somewhere about 4 minutes into his speech, and then relogging again, and then, you know, to pick it. You need to practice. You need to know exactly where you are with your speech, right? Now, just in case you guys are sleeping, let's do a quick recap. Number one, don't start with a humorous speech. Start writing a regular speech, complete that speech, and then make it funny, right? 87% of all the statistics that you hear are made up on the spot, but 99.34% you'll get this right if you start writing a regular speech and you make it funny. Can't find a topic to write? Think of the 3 most, or let's not stop at 3. Think of the 7 most embarrassing stories from your life, and you have your material there. We love embarrassing stories. Embarrassing stories bring out the humor and write about it. Chances are that most of us, when we reminisce about the embarrassing stories, we ourselves will start laughing about it. Like I said, the usual ground rules apply. The usual rules of physics apply. Embellish your speech using the regular rules of English, evocative language, clever metaphors, and your judges will actually be voting for you. You'll be marked for this. Go for that big opening and that big closing. So ensure that you have one punchline coming in with the first 20 seconds. Ensure that you have at least one clever punchline coming in every minute, if not sooner. Ensure that you have 2 punchlines coming in the last 2 minutes or last 1 minute. As many clever twists that you can put in, that'd be great. Like I said, do the twist. That song should be playing on your mind when you're writing your speech. As many twists that you can put it, the audience would love you for this. The judges would love you for it. Surprise is something that you can play to your advantage while you're writing a humorous speech. Things to avoid anything that divides your audience, anything that would actually say it's like, you know, A versus B situation, North India versus South India, India versus Pak, man versus women, anything. Avoid. Be as democratic as possible. Mentor and a bakra. These 2 sides of the spectrum, they will help you to avoid all these 6 things that I mentioned so far, and they'll ensure that you have a good speech on your hands. And practice as much as possible wherever you can. yeah, have fun. It's a humorous speech after all, right? Some people are really, really worried about being the first speaker because there's so much pressure on you to be the first speaker, right? Believe me, it's a good place to be if you're the first speaker. You just kind of go on and give your speech. You have that big opening. You set the stage for the rest of the speakers. You set the bar, and you can sit back and you can just laugh at the rest of the speeches. If you're the last speaker, perfectly fine. You can either you can choose to be in the breakout room, or you can just listen to all the speeches. You know where exactly the bar has been set, and you know how to break it. So I choose to listen to all the speakers because you know exactly where the bar is set. You know how to prep yourself. You're thinking like a killer there. You need to shoot at the right place, and have fun while the rest of the speeches are going on. I'm usually doing my burpees or jumping jacks just to ensure that the blood is pumping and just to ensure that you're on your A game. That's roughly it. I'm open for questions, answers, conversation, anything at all that you guys would like to chat about.
Who has the first question? Let's have a huge round of applause and let's start with the question. Okay, Toastmaster Abhinav has already raised his hand. Yes, go ahead, Toastmaster Abhinav.
Right. Just 1 second there. A question there from guest Jim. What's the English translation of bakra? Bakra literally means goat in Hindi. The English translation would be victim. You need to get a victim on whom you can try all your jokes out. Yes, Toastmaster Abhinav.
Thank you so much, Toastmaster Cyril. It was a great session. And I have this, I wanted to ask somebody, and good that I got an opportunity. It happens it doesn't happen quite often that we are part of a joke. Maybe if I reflect during my professional office timing, like once in 3 months, something happens, something happens with the boss or something happens with a colleague and we all laugh our lungs out, but it is like only 2 or 3 instances. And that gets quickly finished whenever we are giving speech. So how do we get more such jokes which is real? If it is real joke, like it has happened, I'm sure the amount of laughs would be more rather than we invent a joke with a lot of scientific, So that was my question. How do we find more of such real instances? Do we need to invest a lot of time in gossiping? Because we have to work also during our office times. Over to you.
Right. I struggle with this a lot. There's no correct answer to this. So I initially was struggling with what topic I should be writing about. Then in my case, the speech was about me trying to profess my feelings to a girl, all the things that I thought what could go wrong, and actually what ultimately went wrong. You need to write a story. Think of your speech as a story that you're writing. If you're really, really struggling, then don't just make it a one situation, right? If you're talking about that, think about the 5 most embarrassing things that really happened to you. Or if you're talking about a wedding, talk about the people that you meet at a wedding, the show-offy types, the people who come only for the food, the people who come and quickly say namaste, they walk away, or the people who really talk a lot in weddings, and then put in your situation there. Talk about an office situation, talk about your boss, talk about your colleagues, their peculiarities. Introduce each of them as characters, and then introduce a situation. There you have your opening, your start, and opening, your body, and your conclusion. So that would be one clever way. Don't think of it as a humorous speech when you're writing it for the first time. Think of it as a regular story, and then get that basic outline clear, and then you think about embellishing it with humor.
Next question. Who wants to take it up? Okay, meanwhile, people think, I have a question, Cyril. So when you talk about audiences, now, how do you ensure that when you go from club to area to division to district, maybe international, how do you ensure that your jokes work at every instance? Because The audiences are different.
Right. So in this situation, the club contest is the simplest of them all, because you know who are the people, you know what kind of people are sitting there. Ensure that you are democratic, and this really works when you have a number of bakras or victims that you can practice your speech on. There are these few things that you need to try. Like I said, ensure that you have good wordplay, ensure that you have good puns. These are democratic ways to ensure that your speech is funny. Talk to as many people as possible. Check if your jokes are landing. You can't really afford a joke where the audience, it will click with the audience maybe 3 seconds after you crack the joke. You can't crack too intelligent a joke. At the same time, this is not stand-up comedy. You just can't have, unrelated one-liners coming in again. Ensure that you have a democratic set of bakras, victims, that you practice your speech on, so that you're catering to the entire, smorgasbord. You're catering the entire wide set of people that you do not know, that you haven't seen. Now, this would be totally different had this been a physical contest, right? Because I keep saying, laughter is the best medicine, and laughter is also the best virus. Someone starts laughing and laughter picks up. Now, you just don't have that luxury in a Zoom environment. The only way you can ensure that your jokes cater to the wider audience is by having a wide set of people that you can try your jokes on. So have 10, 12, 15, 20 bakras, and you can thank them later. You can buy them a treat.
Great. Any more questions? Yeah. Janvi, go ahead.
Master John.
Yeah, I had a question regarding the logistics, like since I have never participated in any contest. So is it like
Right.
when you move from let's say a club level to a district level, you use the same speech, the exact same speech, or is it like you can improvise the speech depending upon the reaction that you have received from the audience?
Wow, great question. You actually elevate your speech at every level. In my case, even the speech title had changed. As I moved from division to area to division to district, I think only maybe 30 to 35% of the original speech remained. 70% of the speech was actually new material. The competition heats up. You're competing with people who may have better material. You need to kind of shift up. So ensure that you attend as many area contests, as many division contests, other club contests, to ensure that you have a good eye on your competition. Again, Zoom environment gives you that little advantage of being there. Your speech can change. Your speech can radically change. As per Toastmasters rules, you don't even need to say the same speech. You can give speech X for your club level, speech Y for your area level, and speech Z for your division level. You can change your speech. That liberty is entirely for you.
Anyone else? We still have 3 minutes. Come on, make the most of it. Any questions? I have one more question. Meanwhile, people think I'll ask you one last question from my side. Sarcasm.
Right.
How good is it to use in a Toastmaster speech? The type of humor, the sarcasm. What do you suggest?
Great question. Avinash, questions coming from you, it's like, Dronacharya asking Arjun about things. I'm a little hesitant about answering these questions when you pose it. But sarcasm is one of the inherent tools of humor. Sarcasm, irony, all of these things. The problem with sarcasm is that it's like a double-edged sword. Some people, you can wound people with sarcasm. You never know. Therefore, use them. Use sarcasm as much as possible, but ensure that you try and test it on a wider spectrum of people, so that you're not really wounding or you're not dividing your audience in any way. Sarcasm, go ahead. I would say use tongue-in-cheek, sarcasm, irony, whatever. I think these are awesome arrows in your quiver that you can use during a humorous speech.
Thank you. Any last question? Anyone? Yeah, sorry. Yeah.
A couple of things. I would actually encourage people to use dialogues. It's something which you don't see being used much. It's always narration. If you use dialogues, it automatically adds more animation to your speech. It makes your speech a lot more animated. You can use your accents well. You can use, the acting ability. Dialogues can literally connect with your audience in a way a regular speech narration cannot. I would really, really encourage you to use dialogues, and that gives you a wider canvas to play. Sorry, Avinash, you were saying something.
No, I was just asking for the last question. That's okay. The last question, we have 1 minute left. Any last questions? Okay, any last one? Yeah, sure, go ahead.
Yeah, sure. So firstly, thank you, Toastmaster Cyril. That was such a great session with explanations of every detail. So I think you covered this point in in a high level. Maybe my question is, can you share an instance where your process of dropping a joke or dropping something where you felt that instead of this, some other thing would be beneficial? Like, was there any process that you followed? Like, definitely the reaction from Bakras, and that would be the one of the indicators, but that would be subjective, right? One person might say that yes, it's working, other person might say.
Right. So I think you guys have a great in-house resource in Avinash, who was my sounding board. By the time we were in the district level, we ensured that there was not a single extraneous joke or extraneous line which wasn't taking the speech forward. So I think one of the opening lines of my speech was that this was about me professing my love for someone, and that's as good as a Toastmaster speech that you're delivering, right? You need to have a opening, body, closing. I had started with saying that I think one of my English teachers in school told me that life is very short, but if you want to make it longer, try giving a speech. It's a clever line to use, but then it wasn't giving that level of punchiness that a humorous speech at a district level probably would have reached. So we changed it. We started with you can face all your problems except when the problem is your face, right? It had a lot more punchiness to it. Therefore, we dropped the other joke and put this joke in. There were, in my case, I think I had enough of Bakras that there weren't any divisive jokes. But then, like I said, 70% of my speech had morphed entirely. So I think I can't remember. Spoiled for choice when it comes to remembering the kind of jokes that we dropped. But yeah, those are the kind. You ensure that every single line is taking your speech one level upwards. There are no draggings. There are no places where your speech is being hampered by a joke.
Right. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Toastmaster Cyril. We had an awesome time. You displayed everything quite nicely. Anyone has any questions, you can reach out to me or directly. You have his number and the email address. You can mail him, call him. He will be more than happy to help you. Let's have a huge round of applause for Toastmaster Cyril for taking out time. And we had to reschedule it. So thank you for accommodating readers and debaters